The Cape of Good Hope once looked like just another dot on the map, but it swallowed more than 2,000 ships. Heroes sank alongside legends, and to this day no one fully explains why this place became a maritime graveyard. Some blame treacherous currents, others swear they've seen the Flying Dutchman legend. The truth is, the Cape hides secrets that forever changed shipwreck history. In 1852, the HMS Birkenhead sank near the Cape of Good Hope, marking shipwreck history not just for its tragedy, but for its heroism. Soldiers stood motionless on deck, allowing women and children to be saved. From that moment came the famous principle, women and children first. Amid the chaos, where screams and waves merged, those men chose discipline and honor. The episode became a symbol within the long list of maritime disasters. That act paved the way for stories mixing courage, fear, and even the mystique of the Flying Dutchman legend. Not long after the shock of the Birkenhead, sailors crossing the Cape of Good Hope faced another ghost, the Flying Dutchman legend. They said the cursed ship roamed endlessly, doomed never to find safe harbor. Too many, each strange light on the horizon was a bad omen. This legend took root because the sea, besides being the stage of shipwreck history, was also a source of mystery. The unknown fed stories that fueled collective fear, turning the ocean into an invisible enemy. And so, between real heroism and the shadows of maritime disasters, sailors' imaginations blurred with naval exploration itself. The Cape of Good Hope is far more than a milestone in naval exploration. It's a true maritime cemetery. Here, the warm Agulhas current collides with cold waters, creating towering waves within minutes. No wonder more than 2,000 shipwrecks mark the shipwreck history of this place. Sudden winds and violent mood swings of the sea made it a nightmare for sailors. Imagine sailing and, in an instant, the sky closes as if night had fallen at midday. This raw power of nature explains why so many maritime disasters occurred here, and how even global climate feels the Cape's influence. When Bartholomew Dias reached the Cape of Good Hope in the 15th century, he called it the Cape of Storms. Ferocious gales and wrecks justified the name, a warning written into shipwreck history. But the Portuguese king renamed it the Cape of Good Hope, meant to inspire new conquests. That simple act showed how names shape our sense of danger. What once sounded like a death sentence became a promise of future triumph. It was 15th century imperial marketing in action, fueling naval exploration and daring sailors to face maritime disasters. The Cape of Good Hope became far more than a map marker. It was a central piece in the first globalization. In 1652, the Dutch East India Company set up a strategic station there, controlling routes and supplies. This stronghold made the Cape a key to global naval exploration. Over time, the British seized control in 1795 and again in 1806, cementing their dominance. What looked like a mere stretch of land turned into a symbol of power and trade. In practice, whoever ruled the Cape controlled the flow of wealth, while shipwreck history recorded the price of such rivalry in hostile seas. The Cape of Good Hope holds tales of maritime disasters that expose both human error and nature's limits. The Waterloo in 1842, carrying prisoners, was destroyed in the bay, evidence of a system doomed from the start. The Arniston in 1815 claimed 370 lives because of one missing chronometer, proving how vital technology was for survival. The Snow Jose Paquette to Africa sank in 1790, with hundreds of enslaved people on board, a grim testimony of the transatlantic trade. Decades later, a fire in 1874 left only 5 survivors among immigrants bound for New Zealand. And the SS Warta vanished in 1909 without a trace, feeding mysteries compared to the Mary Celeste or even MH370. Faced with endless maritime disasters, humans struck back by building symbols of resistance. At the Cape of Good Hope, lighthouses like the Cape Point Lighthouse rose to guide ships through stormy nights. Better nautical charts and meteorological observations also reduced risks, showing how shipwreck history fueled progress. Each tragedy became a catalyst for innovation. Radio communication, for example, turned isolation into possible rescue. Naval exploration advanced under pressure from disaster, a cycle mirrored in aviation and beyond. The sea, in this sense, was a harsh but relentless teacher. With the opening of the Suez Canal, the Cape of Good Hope lost some of its strategic importance. Shorter, safer routes reduced exposure to shipwreck history. Yet in times of crisis like the ever-given blockage in 2021, the Cape proved its value again as an alternative route. This shows how naval exploration never fully cut ties with the Cape. Even after centuries of maritime disasters, it still shapes global trade. The modern world learned that a single choke point in Suez can send eyes back to Africa's unpredictable southern seas. Today, the Cape of Good Hope is part of Table Mountain National Park and draws thousands of visitors. Trails lead tourists past old wreck sites, letting them walk across scenes that etch themselves into shipwreck history. For visitors, it's a postcard view. For sailors of old, it was life or death. This memory tourism transforms tragedy into collective learning. Walking those paths, visitors relive echoes of maritime disasters that shaped naval exploration. It proves that places of pain and courage remain alive, not just in wild nature, but in the human stories that endure. If the Cape of Good Hope was already seen as a maritime hell, Cape Horn at the southern tip of Chile was no less. Cutting winds, towering waves, and freezing cold turned the passage into a survival test. Together, these two headlands became icons of shipwreck history. Sailors said crossing Cape Horn was like facing human limits themselves. While the African Cape challenged with treacherous currents, the Chilean one tested endurance with polar climate. Two gates of danger shaped naval exploration, reminders that global trade was born in risk. The waters around the Cape of Good Hope still hide secrets that underwater archaeology is beginning to uncover. New wreck discoveries bring back fragments of shipwreck history once thought lost. Cannons, coins, even pottery shards reveal trade routes and human drama frozen beneath the sea. One of the most powerful finds was the Snow Jose paquette to Africa, linked to the slave trade. Recovering it not only confirmed records of maritime disasters, but also gave voice to silenced victims. Each dive feels like a return to the past of naval exploration, illuminating unwritten pages of history. The Cape of Good Hope lives not only in shipwreck history, but also in art and imagination. The Flying Dutchman legend inspired Wagner's opera and appears in books and films, blending mystery with fear of the unknown. The sea, after all, has always been fertile ground for metaphor. Poets and musicians turn maritime disasters into songs of pain and courage. Even today, literature revives this imagery, showing how naval exploration shaped Western culture. The Cape ceased being just a geographic landmark and became a universal symbol of fate, faith, and resilience against the impossible. The Cape of Good Hope also became a symbol of no return. For many sailors, crossing it meant the courage to leave the known behind and face the unknown. This perception stretched beyond shipwreck history, becoming a metaphor for personal and collective challenges. Just as sailors face treacherous currents, each of us faces turbulent seas of our own. The Cape stands for that moment when there's no turning back, only moving forward. The idea spread from naval exploration into culture, reminding us that the greatest frontier isn't in the ocean, it's within ourselves. The Cape of Good Hope was not just a backdrop for shipwreck history, it was the stage where empires fell, lives were lost, and legends like the Flying Dutchman were born. This is no exaggeration. More than 2,000 ships prove the ocean does not forgive mistakes. The Cape is more than naval exploration, it is a brutal reminder that nature always demands its price. If you want to keep discovering real stories marked by courage, tragedy, and mysteries that still defy the world, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you'll never look at the sea the same way again.